again. It's another hot topic tonight. Welcome to the program, Tyrone Bowman Live. I'm your boy, I'm your host. Let's get right down to it. You know, Donald Trump tried this same thing when former President Barack Obama was running to become president. It was about the birther issue, where he was born. As you know, Barack Obama is biracial. His mother's Caucasian, his father from Africa. He was an economist. So, what did Trump do? He thought by raising the birther issue, it was somehow going to stop him from becoming president. So, let's talk about the phony outrage by Republicans over Vice President Kamala Harris's birthplace exposes a glaring double standard, according to an article in MSNBC. Let me dig right into it and offer my analysis and personal commentary as I go along. Presidential candidates spend a lot of time emphasizing where they're from, or at least emphasizing the place they chosen to say they're from. In what counts as one of the bizarre attacks of this year's presidential race, Vice President Kamala Harris, the Democratic presidential nominee, stands accused of wrongly characterizing herself as a, quote, daughter of Oakland, close quote. According to an investigative report in the New York Times, Harris was born in the adjacent Berkeley, California. What difference does it make? Did she have any voice in the matter when her parents chose to become intimate as to where she was going to be born at? Let's talk about Trump's heritage. You can trace it back to Germany. That's why his father changed the name to Trump. Immigrants migrated from Germany to America. So what is the big deal? What is the issue? Jesse Waters at Fox, the racist and bigoted network, went so far as to hold up Harris's birth certificate with that Berkeley home address listed. As awful as that was, Waters using Harris's birth certificate as some kind of gotcha was not only a reminder of the birther attacks on President Barack Obama, but it also revealed what this inquisition is really about, portraying Harris as sneaky, inauthentic, and unworthy of trust. BS. You're going to try to tell me that Donald Trump is authentic and worthy of trust? Are you kidding? Let's talk about the January 6th insurrection. Instead of him accepting defeat and conceding, he tried to tear the damn nation apart, set it ablaze, destroyed the very White House and the infrastructure that housed him for 4 years. He went so far as to be defiant and not even show up for the inauguration of President Biden. Not only is he a sore loser, but that's petty. Of course, they don't call them rioters, they call them patriots. If there had been a bunch of black people who did the same damn thing, they would have been called thugs. They would have been called hoodlums. They would have been called vagrants. We're not going to tolerate this. We demand law and order. We demand that they be arrested and tried and executed. You know darn well that's exactly how it been. Had President Barack Obama done the same exact thing that Trump did on January 6th of 2020, he would have been arrested, charged, tried, and executed on the same day. And you know it. There's always a double standard in this nation. One for privileged white people and one for disproportionately black people. It never fails. That's why the cities are filled with immigrants from all over the world. Where'd they send them to? To the hood. You tell me, how do Chinese and Japanese and Asian immigrants come from where they come from and come into the black neighborhoods and set up businesses without loans, without guaranteed low interest loans. This stuff doesn't happen. This is methodical. This is strategic. The birthday issue is something that has been tried. It failed then and it's going to fail now. And you all are mad and you're pissed off because you can't get under Vice President Kamala Harris's skin. She's too intelligent for you. She's too dignified. She's too classy. You used to loudmouth people like Marjorie Taylor Greene. Where is loudmouth? Haven't seen much of her, have we? Oh, y'all probably told her to sit down and shut up before she mess up everything for everybody. Loudmouth is nowhere to be found. She had a whole lot to say about everything. But now she's nowhere to be found. Where were some of you born? Let's pull out the birth certificates of every Republican in Congress. Pull out the birth certificates of every Republican in the Senate. Let's find out where they're from. Pull out the birth certificates of every Republican that's a state representative. Americans give a lot of attention to where a candidate is from, and presidential candidates spend a lot of time emphasizing where they're from, or at least emphasizing the place they've chosen to say they're from. For example, as a candidate and even as president, Joe Biden has rarely missed an opportunity to mention his scrappy Scranton, Pennsylvania roots. Yes, that's where he was born, but Biden's family relocated to Delaware. When he was in elementary school, it's likely that relatively few people know which cities in that state he called home as a child and teenager. But we know Biden eventually ended up in Wilmington, where many residents affectionately refer to him as Delaware Joe. I was born in a certain part of Philadelphia and then relocated due to the foster care system, because I was a part of the foster care system growing up in 4 different locations. They had me all over the city. Does that mean that I'm disingenuous about where I was born? I know exactly where I was born at. But the place I choose to call home is a different thing. Kamala Harris had no say-so as to where she was born. If she chooses to say she's from a certain place, that's her prerogative. That's her right. You all don't tell her what she can and cannot do. That's the problem with you Republicans. You want to control everything, everybody, all the time, and you all are thin-skinned. If anybody says the least thing to you all that you don't like, now you're mad, you're indignant, you get upset. Because you don't want black people to have a voice. That's why I can't be a politician, because you wouldn't talk about me. I'd cuss all of y'all out during the debate. I would never shake your hand. I would be defiant. I would be belligerent to a Republican candidate. I'd lay them out. I wouldn't even address the issues. I would refuse to talk to my opponent. I'd only talk to the moderator. I'd show you how to win an election. You fight fire with fire. You talk about my mother, I talk about your mother and your father. How about that? You talk about my family, I'll talk about yours. You dig up dirt on me, I dig up dirt on you. Tit for tat, that's right. Eye for an eye, foot for foot, tooth for tooth. Bible. Sometimes people are too passive and too nice and too conciliatory toward their opponent. Damn that. I'm in it to win an election. I don't have to be nice. It's about winning. And the reason why Trump is hell-bent on trying to win, because he's being called a loser. And he said he doesn't like losers. Well, he's old. He's a relic from the past. He's stammering all over the place. He's not coherent. They always kept talking about Biden, his age. Well, Trump is 78. He'll be 79 soon. We don't want another person in the White House who's going to be in their 80s when they leave. You know, Republicans, y'all so stupid. You could have chosen someone else to run as your candidate, but you chose not to. That's your fault. That's your burden to bear. Now back to the article. All politicians, Harris included, are aware that the question of where they're from is more about identity, or at least the identity we want to project, than geography. Home isn't just a matter of where we say we're from, it's also about where others decide it makes them the most sense for us to be from. If I tell you I'm from Detroit, then that conjures up not just association, but expectation and explanations that are different than what they'd be if I told you I grew up in Boulder, Colorado. Geographers, city planners, and urban designers call this place-based identity. Politicians call this useful. Why? Because when you say you're from Detroit, that means you're a thug, you're a hoodlum, you're black, you're unwanted, you're trash, you're garbage. That's why they try to pick nice places to say where they're from. Be proud of your heritage. Be proud of where you're from. You don't have to change anything for anybody. And those of you, I'm talking to black people now, those of you who want to run for elections, run with some courage. Run with some strength. Run with the soul of your ancestors in mind and stop appeasing these bigoted, racist Republicans. And when you get into where you're going to get to, fight for your constituency. Because if I ran for an election, I'd tell them, you can give me 4 years because I'm doing everything for my people, point blank. Yeah, straight up. I'm taking care of my people. You don't have to worry about re-election. Don't intend to be re-elected. Don't want to be re-elected. Give me 4 years of anything. State representative, congressman, whatever you want to call it. I'm helping my people. The same way white folk help their people. I'm helping mine. As someone who was born in the Bay Area and then lived in Evanston, Illinois, Madison, Wisconsin, and Montreal, Canada, before returning to the East Bay, there are a lot of places for Harris to gesture toward as potential homes and homes away from home. She chose Oakland. Harris supporters, like that she's the celebrated daughter of a city we want to root for too. They like the association for the same reason that her critics want to question it. It is politically useful, just like Biden's bringing in gritty Scranton or her running mate Tim Walz's in small town Nebraska. After all, the Black Party Panther was founded in Oakland in 1966 and organized a host of social services for low-income families, such as legal aid, health clinics, and free breakfast programs for kids. They don't talk about that part of the Black Panther Party. But it was okay to have the KKK running rampant in America for almost 100 years, terrorizing black people night and day, day and night, and got a nerve to burn a cross. I've talked to people personally whose families came in contact with the Klan and how it affected them psychologically. The whitewashers of history, the so-called revisionists of history. Y'all are not going to get anywhere with this ploy. It's not going to work because we're going to tell the story ourselves. We're going to write about it ourselves. We're going to speak about it ourselves. We're going to proclaim it ourselves. And this ain't a movie. This is real life. At least then Oakland has become synonymous with black resistance, racial pride, and self-reliance. It kind of reminds us of the underdog Harris says she is. She is the underdog. She's the underdog in this race. She's a woman, and she's a black woman, and we know that the haters of black people don't want her to become president. That's the bottom line. And until this election is over, I'm going to ferociously defend her night after night on Tyrone Bowman Live. And I don't care if y'all don't like it. Doesn't matter with me. I'm not apologizing for a damn thing that I say. Barack Obama always put his Kansas roots where his mother grew up, alongside his Hawaiian birthplace, even as he claimed the South Side of Chicago as a home. Jeb Bush and George W. Bush shedding their ties to coastal Maine helped them get elected the governors of Florida and Texas, respectively. And the Texan was twice elected president. Donald Trump is from Queens, but is always wanted to be seen as the king of Manhattan. But you don't talk about that, do you? I wonder why. Because you don't want to talk about it. Because you think he's a Messiah. Y'all think he's Almighty God. Y'all worship that man. He's flesh and blood like anybody else. Rightfully or not, a candidate's hometown ends up symbolizing something profound about the individual, what the person stands for, and as importantly, whom the candidate will fight for. It's why some of Harris's Republican critics insist she was raised in Canada. Big deal, whatever. Who cares? Where were you raised at? Good. Got your tongue? Where were y'all raised at? Because when we talk about y'all don't like it. When we get fired up and come at your gut, you don't like it. Harris may be fudging things slightly when she calls herself the daughter of Oakland. Well, she chooses to say that. That's all right. But she shouldn't be singled out for it. Maybe many people who grew up next to a big city call that bigger city home, instead of asking whether it's technically true that she's from Oakland and whether she ought to be corrected for slighting Berkeley. We ought to be asking whether we put more demands on black candidates to authenticate who they are, who they say they are, and whether their answers are more closely scrutinized. Damn right, that's exactly what they do. If you're black, you gotta be scrutinized all the time, all day, all night, all year. We want answers. But you don't apply the same common questions to white candidates. You always want black people to apologize. Apologize for what? We're not apologizing for a damn thing, nothing. Apologies are off the table. Y'all don't apologize for nothing, we're not apologizing for nothing. Y'all don't ask people to forgiveness, we're not asking for forgiveness. Y'all don't forgive, we don't forgive. Y'all don't turn the other cheek, we're not turning the other cheek. Forget that. That time is over. That time is finished. That time is history. By all indications, Oakland loves Harris and claims her back and doesn't care where she went to primary school. Republicans, who profess to be upset about it, are in keeping with Trump's insulting attack on our identity, suggesting that she is falsely trying to claim blackness. Man, if you don't go someplace with that BS, like black people are supposed to identify with you because you got a mugshot. That's one of the most insulting things I've ever heard. That we empathize with you because of a mugshot. Of all the things to identify with, a mugshot. And listen up, black folk. I'm getting ready to do a story about a black Republican, a Trump supporter, who's been called a slave. And if you don't like this report, you really aren't going to like that one. And yeah, they called him a slave, and I believe every word of it. They're trying to whitewash it, but I'm going to talk about it. Whether you all like it or not, don't care. It doesn't matter with me. Republicans who profess to be upset about it, in keeping with Trump's insulting attack on her identity, suggesting that she is falsely trying to claim blackness, when she's only doing what all politicians do, naming a place of origin that signals her politics. Yes, Harris gains bona fides from being associated with a city that symbolizes black working class grit and activism, and not the image of white elitism and radicalism associated with San Francisco, but especially Berkeley. But J.D. Vance, let's talk about that hypocrite. Let's talk about this bigot. Made a name for himself by highlighting his Appalachian roots and using that to illustrate how far he's come, even though Appalachia isn't where he's actually from. So why is there not a big stink about J.D. Vance? Why aren't you digging into his past? Why aren't you calling him a liar? Why aren't you telling him that he's not white enough? Why aren't you raising the birther issue among him? Because it's always a double standard, night and day. Candidates such as Harris and Obama are subjected to more questions about their origins, not because politicians, as a rule, give wholly truthful and clear declarations about their origins, but because they're seen as not belonging in the first place. Writer Zadie Smith summed it up nicely in 2008 when she said that many of the public reservations about Obama stemmed from their inability to pinpoint where exactly he was from and who exactly he represented. To these people, he appeared too chameleon-like, too skilled at speaking to the many faces of American society. Smith said it was less a matter of Obama changing himself, depending on his location, and more that he was from more than one place at the same time, none truer or for than another. But Obama won the presidency twice, though, didn't he? Whether you all like it or not. Half of white America put him in the White House twice. All of black America put him in the White House twice. Where are you from is a loaded question. That on its surface seems simple. The answer isn't clear-cut for me, and it isn't clear-cut for many of us. Are we talking about where I was born or where I grew up? What do we say if our family moved around a lot or if we spent some formative years abroad? We might answer differently depending on who's asking, why we think they're asking, or what we feel comfortable sharing. As for Harris, it's not that important where home is according to her birth certificate. She had no say in that matter. Where she chooses to say she's from tells us a lot more. So whether you all like it or not, she's our sister. We're going to stand with her. We're going to vote for her. Whether you all agree or not, we really don't give a damn. Never surrender. Never quit.